Moving into wide. All right, we have audio. We have us.
All right.
Welcome back, Andorian Guitar Works Backstage. Guided look at life experiences and the ways and means of a guitarist's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Matt Ackerman.
Brian McCoy, also known as Bones.
Also known as Bones.
Sorry, I'm stumbling through things today.
Yeah, man, it's been a weekend.
It's been a
Anyone
weekend.
else had like a really weird week? Because it's been weird. So I'm going to mute this audio. Okay, tech glitch 1. But at least we know it's working.
We got that out of the way.
I've been excited for episode 3 because it's not about Mark Lanigan yet, but what we're doing is we're getting back to sort of like the manifestation of what I envisioned Backstage to be. And my first thought about Backstage was I wanted sort of like an opportunity to just talk about tech. Let's live stream pickup installs. Let's live stream a guitar build. That kind of stuff. And I realized that there's more to Backstage than just the tech, which is why the last couple episodes we've had have been really, really deep and meaningful and, you know, kind of beyond music. But today we're going to bring it back to like what the original idea was. So this is going to be fun. It's going to be two guys who have been around guitars pretty much our whole life.
Yes.
Working on guitars. I have one right here. Working
Got a
on
few more around here.
and a few more.
You may or may not know.
So we're gonna talk specifically about tuning today. Not about like standard tuning versus drop D tuning versus whatever, but about tuning stability. What that means is like you pick up a guitar and you play it, and is it staying in tune for you, or is it going out of tune every song? And what the hell? Why can't I keep this in tune?
I think I'll speak for just about everybody. We've all had that moment where we're playing a guitar, whether it's live on stage or just practicing, and the damn thing won't stay in tune. So today Matt is going to help walk us through some of the steps that we can take to make sure that does not happen. And it's also we're going to do an install on some brand new tuning pegs.
New tuning pegs.
Should be fun.
We'll talk a little bit about the tuning stability. We're going to talk about, and I'm going to show you a couple different kinds of guitars. And then we're going to talk about string winding. This is like if you don't have the budget to put in locking tuners on your guitar, or you just don't want to for a variety of reasons. What's up, Mike Jackson? Good to see you, buddy. He was my singer back in Northwater.
Oh.
Or one of the singers
Mike,
from
how's it
Northwater. You remember Mike. How to wind. If you don't have the budget for locking tuners, you don't want to put on locking tuners, maybe you've got a vintage guitar, you just don't want to do it, that's cool. But there is like a right and a wrong way to wind strings. There's actually lots of right ways and lots of wrong ways. More wrong ways than right. But I'm going to show you one tried and true method that will keep your guitar in tune. And then we're going to move on to that locking tuner install. So I'm going to switch over here, and we're going to talk about what can affect your tuning stability. So what we have right here is a Fender Stratocaster. I'm going to flip it around. So this is what you call, it's got a tremolo on it. It's got, this type of guitar has lots of different points on the guitar where you could find tuning failure. Because what you got up here, you have your tuning pegs, right? And the strings come over the nut. They run all the way down the neck of the guitar. On this guitar, it is a bolt-on neck. So depending on how well this is jointed, you can have, that's a variable. And then the strings come down, they come over the saddles into the bridge. And on a guitar with a tremolo, what you have is a balance between the tension of the strings on the top of the guitar and the springs in the back that pull the other side of the bridge down. Now this guitar is decked, and what that means is I don't have a hard piece of wood in here, but I have 5 springs in here basically keeping the bridge down. So this bridge doesn't float. But if you had a bridge that was delicately balanced, if you were playing and you broke a string or one string started to go out of tune, what would happen is that the other 5 strings would start to go out of tune in the opposite direction because the balance would be out.
Start pulling it, yeah.
Exactly. So this is like one type of instrument. We're not working on this guitar today, but it was the best way that I could help you visualize a tremolo system, because I don't have a plate on the back. So the springs on the back balanced against the strings on the top.
Oh, this is the guitar that you had actually put together your first
Yeah,
full
this
build guitar, right?
it's not the first Strat that I've had. This Strat kind of came around. I picked up this garbage made in Mexico Strat, and then started like piecing it together and changing it over and over and over until I had literally changed every piece on the guitar and it became an entirely different guitar. So this is basically a build. And then this one in particular, no disrespect to anyone who has like a direct Stevie Ray Vaughan #1 replica, but what I didn't want was a Stevie Ray Vaughan replica. I did want it to sort of sing in the spirit of Stevie. So it's got the flip trem, the routing courtesy of my buddy Mark Tyler in Tumwater, Washington. And then everything else on it, it's custom. We'll talk about that later. But this is
that
my
might
baby.
be a whole nother show.
Whole
but
nother
still,
show on this
wanted
guitar.
to point that out. That's the guitar. When we talk about his build guitar, that's his
the
guitar.
one. So moving into another type of tremolo system, this is an ESP Horizon 2. This is a Floyd Rose system. This is a true floating bridge, and what you can see here,
Ooh, got that zoom.
as we come in here, is you can see that that you can go down, all right, or you pull up, and this is a true floating system. These strings are locked in down here, and then up at the headstock, what you got. I always take my Floyd Roses and I string them backwards just because it looks funny. But so these wind around the pegs just like normal, but then once you tune everything up, you lock the strings in place up here at a locking nut, and then you do your fine tuning with these little guys here. But this is this is the guitar. Like if you're going to play a guitar with a Floyd Rose on it, you want to make sure it's a good setup and it's a good quality parts, because these truly float. If this string starts going sharp or flat, the other ones are going to react in key. Yeah, and because it is a balance of, you can't see the springs on this one because I got a back plate, but there are springs back there that balance the strings on the front. And if you snap a string, then what will happen is that there will be more tension on the back than there is on the top. There'll be more tension on the back than there is on the top, and what happens if this goes away, now everything else would go sharp. So there's this tuning stability element there as well.
Hi, Bethany, by the way. Bethany just joined us as well.
Most commonly what you're going to see, it's what is it? It's Occam's razor, right? The simplest solution. That's the one, right?
It's typically the right one.
Most of the time, tuning stability problems come from just like people don't wind their strings correctly.
I've been guilty of that.
Well, we've all been guilty of it.
We learn,
But so, like, you tell me, how many, like, we've all got that buddy or a couple buddies who, maybe they just bought a guitar in college, or they've got a guitar that sits in their bedroom and they probably don't play it, which is probably why it doesn't stay in tune. But
right.
You go over there, and when you take a look at the tuning pegs, what's it look like?
Shit, I was that guy for a while. I
Right.
mean, I tried pulling as tight as possible, pull it through, maybe wrap it once, and then clip it.
Yeah.
I've tried letting the strings just fly without clipping it, which also kind of gets in the way. I mean, it's what you do real quick on stage if you have a break. You don't have any tools to clip it with, but I've done put as little through as possible and wind it as much as you can, and
where you've wound the entire string onto the peg.
Yeah,
right.
Which then you get this bulky wrap on the spring the string wrapping around the peg that typically will end up popping off the end of the peg.
Exactly.
Because you got too much string.
Yeah.
So
and you it kind of makes sense, like, why you would do that. If you've just picked up the guitar and you've said, to me, like, I'm so far removed from when I first started playing guitar that it every once in a while surprises me when somebody will come to me and be like, how do I string my guitar? And it's like, well, shit, I guess that was a question I had at one time. And so, like, it makes sense. I should wrap all the string around the peg, because it's kind of like, you think of it as like you're tying a knot. And what do we know about giant freaking knots with tons and tons of rope? Like, they don't come untied, right?
Right.
But I'm not rappelling from a building with this. Like, I'm not worried about it coming untied. I'm worried about the amount of stretch that's going on this string.
Right.
And so it's kind of a bell curve, right? Like there's like too little string on the peg is going to be very inefficient, and the right amount of string wrapped in the right way is going to lock the string efficiently. And if you have too much of it, now there's like an extra foot of string wrapped around this little tiny peg, and when you bend a note or just temperature changes or whatever, it's just that's more material that is going to flex.
Well, and with just like anything else, your string's going to stretch out as you play it. So if you don't have enough room on the peg for more of that string to be wound up, that can cause a problem too, right?
Right.
So you kind of there's that fine line, that balance that you need to find when you're tuning your guitar or adding new strings to your tuning pegs.
So I'll show this guitar again when we actually start working on it. But what I want to show you here's a little secret that I picked up when I was about 18 or so, is what I consider to be the right way to wind your strings. Get ready, Matt's got secrets. You know what my secret is? I can't draw. I also realized
better
that
than my
I drew
drawings.
the headstock of a PRS, realizing that like all Paul Reed Smith guitars have locking tuners, so it's kind of irrelevant. But let's say that you picked up a Paul Reed Smith that didn't have locking tuners.
So it's a custom. Okay.
So it's custom. It's like a reverse custom. So something to remember about these diagrams is that these are all 100% based around the idea that the string comes up the neck of the guitar and then wraps around a certain side of the post. If you are holding a Fender Stratocaster, if you're holding a Fender Strat, they're all like there's 6 to a side on this one. So they're all going to come up and they're going to wrap around the right side. So they're wrapped, I guess, depending on your orientation, they're counterclockwise. I guess I don't know which way you call that.
From inside the headstock out.
Inside, exactly. So it's wrapped around the right. Okay, that's where the tension is. The tension is pulling this peg clockwise. And it's the same on all of these, right? But if you are talking about a Les Paul or a Paul Reed Smith or any other guitar, actually, those of you actually paying attention will notice that what am I hiding on this guitar? Might be missing something. But there's 3 tuners. There's 2 tuners. There's 2 toners, but there's supposed to be 3 against 3. And so on this side of the guitar, the strings are wrapped around the right side. And on the other side of the guitar, the strings are wrapped around the other side so that the strings come down through the center and the tension stays centered over the neck. So these diagrams are accurate as long as you are looking at the way the diagram is shown. So on a 3x3, or actually on most 6x1s, when you are winding your wound strings, what's a wound string?
Those are the low ones. Those are your fatties, guys. They all have.
When you scratch them, they make noise, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Those are your low E, your A, your D, sometimes the G. Some people play with sets that have a wound third string, but almost always.
And that's more for tone.
Yeah, like there's round wound, there's flat wound, and I can't remember the name of the third, but those will all influence the tonal characteristics, right? But most of the time you're playing with round wound. So the way these work is that you pull the string straight through the hole, and then you back it off about 2 or 3 inches, and then you start winding in the correct direction. The first time the string goes around the peg, it should go over the string that you put in, and then for each subsequent wind, it should go under. So what you end up with is one on top, a string going right through the center, and then like 2 or 3 winds below it. And what ends up happening here is that the tension put on here, this all acts like a vise. So those winds on the string are like friction points, and the top wind braces against the 3 subsequent winds below it, and it pinches it tight. And you do that for the bottom 3, if not the third, if you have a round other one. Now for the plain strings, Those are the non-wound. They're just totally flat, like wire, right?
Typically your higher end.
Yeah, your high E, your B, and most of the time your G. These have a little bit of a trick to it, and the first time you try it, if you've never done it before, it'll kind of feel like, what the hell am I doing? But it gets pretty easy. So what you do is you orient your tuning peg so that the hole is perpendicular to the headstock. So your headstock is this way, and then the hole for the tuning peg is like so. And then you run the string from the bridge up to the tuning peg on the side that you're going to carry tension on, right? So if it's on a 3x3, it's going to be on the left side of the peg. If it's on a Fender Strat, it's still going to be on the right. And you make a 90-degree turn and you go through, and you go through. And then you bring that tail around the back side of the peg and go under and pull back. So you go through, around, under, and pull it tight. So you're not really tying a knot, but you're like doing like the first half of a knot.
Okay.
And then you keep tension on this string, and then you start tuning. And what's going to happen is those subsequent winds are going to wrap up and above and pinch that little pigtail against, the third piggy built his house of bricks. No, the little pigtail is tied against the tuning peg, held in place by the tension of 3, 4, 5 winds. And it's going to look really nice. And I probably should have brought in a couple of these, but I wanted to focus on the install. But
So it's the same principle though with the plain as with the round or the ground. Excuse me.
the wound.
Wound strings that you're gonna pull it through, maybe give a couple inches back before doing that bend and the tie, and then wind it.
It's just those wound strings are they have a thicker diameter, one, so and they have the winds against it, so they're friction points, so that you can brace the string with the string itself. It doesn't work so well with the flat strings, with the plain strings, because there's less friction there, and so you use the tension of the wrap to tie the string against the tuning post. It's not perfect. It will go out of tune. Like, it is still not a locking system.
String stretch. Pull through.
Yeah. But it will absolutely stay in tune for, at least a few songs if you're on stage playing live, and it is much better than just tying a rat's nest. It shouldn't look like you just pulled the hair out of your daughter's hairbrush, up here on your tuning peg, right? So cool. That is how to properly wind strings with a non-locking system. And I will post these up on Instagram too, so that you can take a look at these guys.
Cool.
So let's move on to the fun part, because I just get to work now, and we're just gonna talk and do our thing.
Yeah, and please, by all means, send us a comment, a question. Let's have a conversation here.
So this guy right here is, oddly enough, one of my favorite guitars. This is a Gibson Les Paul Studio Dot, which means it doesn't have the really pretty trapezoid inlays. It just has little simple dots. It keeps the cost down, but it plays exactly the same. I had already put some Slash pickups in this guy. I love this guitar. I never thought I would own a Gibson. Those of you that know me know I'm kind of a little bit of a Paul Reed Smith snob.
Just a little
bit. There's some reasons behind this. I never really had a problem with Gibson. I just became a PRS snob. And then the opportunity to own a Gibson came along. I had picked up a budget model Paul Reed Smith when the shop that you went with me. We drove up to Seattle to this shop that I had been going to since I was a kid, and it was going out of business, and we were just last purchase, and I picked up this. What was it? It was an SE24 with a Floyd. Gorgeous Paul Reed Smith guitar, but it just wasn't really calling my name after I played it for a couple months. And I found this guy on Facebook Marketplace, and we just did a straight across trade. What I didn't realize, man, I can't believe we're going to talk about this. This is funny, is So I bought this guitar like in the dead of winter, and I met the guy outside a coffee shop, and I had never sniffed a guitar. I like never thought I'd have to give a guitar the sniff test. And I get home, and this fucking guitar, it smells like, I mean, no disrespect, but it kind of smelled like it lived in like an Avon house in the early '90s. It smelled like cat and cigarettes, and I couldn't play it, man. The guitar was making me sick. I just couldn't play this thing, and so I hung it up, and I just figured I'm gonna leave it out. And I let it hang for like a couple months, and now it doesn't stink anymore. But it took that long. But then I started playing it, and man, I love it. So we are going to. You'll notice that why does it only have 5 tuners? Well, it only has 5 tuners because before I did this show, I wanted to make sure that the parts that I bought actually fit the right hole. So I already pulled a tuner to verify that I got the right part, because I realized I didn't get the specs on the Gibson before I bought it. It works. So yay. So I go with these guys. I have been through tons of different locking tuners, and they're all good. But it really depends on what you want to do. There's Spurzl locking tuners. There's Goto locking tuners. There's Paul Reed Smith has their special one. You can only get them on a PRS. There's all these other ones that I can't even remember their names. What is the ones that put on the Parker? I don't know. But Hipshot, I like Hipshot. I was kind of reluctant to try them because they're actually a little bit cheaper than some of the ones that I had previously purchased, but I really liked the look of them. And then I was reading reviews about them, and I was like, what the hell? I'll give it a try. I love these things. They're open back, right? So you can see the gears, which
That's really cool.
I think is just like really classy.
A little bit of that industrial look.
Yeah, and if you're pulling off stock tuners and you're sensitive to the look, this adds an element to it that you don't maybe see a lot of places. I dig it. So first thing you need is your box of tuners, right? And you don't need the instructions because you're here, and we're giving you the instructions.
Well, keep the instructions.
Keep the instructions.
Might want to walk through them,
for this
if you're not listening to us while you're doing it.
For this particular install, you're going to need a 10 millimeter. Why am I using a ratchet? Well, I'm using a ratchet because my set of deep sockets does not have an adapter for a screwdriver. So absolutely, you are not going to be ratcheting on this. You're going to hold it like a screwdriver. You're going to put like inch pounds on this. You're not going to be torquing on it. So you got your ratchet. You're going to want your wire cutters. An itty bitty baby Phillips screwdriver. And you're going to want some neck support, especially, because I'm sure there's a few people watching right now who are like, oh my God, you've got a Les Paul just flat on the table. Yeah, if any weight fell right here, right now on this angled neck, this be game over. So you always want to support this guy. And I didn't support it before because I was just swapping guitars back and forth. And then you're going to want a set of strings. And then we're going to go. And the way we're going to do this...
I'm curious, though, what strings are you using there?
I use the D'Addario 10 through... What do I have? I don't even remember. It's 10. I think it's like 10 through 42. But I like these. They're packed in nitrogen. They're always fresh. You buy them, and if you don't open them for a year, they still sound good. So when I take the strings off, I am not going to take them all off at once, because with a guitar like this, you got your saddle block, which just sits on 2 pegs, and then you got your tailpiece which sits on this peg here. So if I take off all the strings, then these are going to fall out of place. Or I can take them off and set them aside, but then I risk things falling out of adjustment. And so what I'm going to do is actually do one set of 3, and then string it up, and then do the other set of 3. That way nothing falls apart on the guitar. Make sense? Cool.
Could you also go string by string?
You could go string by string. Well, yeah, you could. This is kind of one of those things where it's like easier to
Yeah,
do,
I'm figuring
do a
it's
batch
probably
of
easier to do
things.
side
Right?
by side.
Yeah. So let's see here. That look good? That looks good. Okay. So we're gonna detune these just enough so that when I cut the strings with the wire nippers, that's not gonna come back and slap anybody.
Yeah, I don't want to lose an eye.
Yeah. 1, 2. And we take... I also do that rather than pulling them out from the top because this stuff here, like, you can yank this through the bridge, or but you risk scratching your finish, and you kind of mar up the metal and the chrome and whatnot. Oh, this is garbage. This is that will be,
Keeping these.
yeah. So yeah, that's a good reminder for me. Why switch tune? Like, why not to switch tuners? Like, there's a good conversation here to have. Like, what does that do for resale value for your guitar?
Or usability. I mean,
Or usability, yeah. So if you are doing this, so 10mm socket, we're gonna put that over the collar and just break it. Not actually break it, right? But if you're doing an install like this, one of the things I like about the Hipshot tuners is they're non-destructive, meaning they have this cool little brace on the back of the new tuners, which allow you to install the new parts without drilling new holes.
that's cool.
So if you have a guitar that you want to change the tuning on because maybe you can't stand playing it live the way it's presently set up, and you want to, fix some tuning related issues, you can sort of do what we're doing today, and you can do a swap and keep your old parts. And if you decide you want to sell that guitar down the line,
Put the old ones back
put
on.
the old ones back on. So that's what we're doing here. And on the back of these tuners, on this Gibson, they're just 2 real tiny Phillips screws that hold the tuning peg in place. And so we are going to use this little mason jar over here, clinkety clink for that, and the 2 screws, and then the collars and the washers. Scotty Campbell. Good to see you, Scott. Thanks for signing on. Is this making you jealous, Scott? Because I know that you miss your Les Paul. But you've got a really cool Strat, so... Okay, so this is all set. To begin install number 1 on this side. So we have... First thing we want to do is establish which set of tuners we're going to use on this. And we can see that if we want to keep everything spaced out the same, that this side of the box has got the tuners that we want to use on this side of the guitar. And let's see, can we see here? Okay, so here we have 4 different little spacer bits. There's 2 for each side. And what these do for us is to get stuck together so that you can't actually finish what you were talking about. Okay. So what these will do is these have these cool little notches on them. Can you see that? So the bracket is going to be held in place by each one of the tuning pegs, and yet the brackets and these little lips on the edge of the bracket are going to lock the orientation of the machine head in place so that it doesn't rotate, right? So we're going to just kind of hold these on right here, and it's going to be kind of loosey-goosey, and this one is just going to pop right into here, and we can see that is correctly... Oh, get my finger out of the way here. So this will not actually rotate, but you can see that this is doing its job because you can see that the machine head is locking against the bracket, right? So that is done correctly. And then we'll take the next one. And do the same. And the next one, and do the same.
And so that's the spacer is actually two parts that slide in and out to give you the
On this particular
proper spacing for
exactly.
different guitar.
On this particular one, that is the case. Yeah. So I guess I didn't think this part through. I can't really flip this over and show you what I'm doing right now because then they're all going to fall out. But what I'm going to do on the other side of the guitar is we have another collar and another washer. And when I flip it over, you'll see what I'm doing here because I still have to tighten it up. But I'm going to put the washer on the collar. And it's going to get nice and stuck there. So I look like, wow, that's really on there tight. Okay, great. So I get the washer on the collar correctly, and then it's going to slip over the tuning peg and thread into place. And we're going to go finger tight on this so that we don't lose any parts. So I'm just going to pull the socket off and kind of spin this guy into place from the underside. And I'm going to do that 2 more times, and I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to put my thing down, flip it, and reverse it to show you what we did on that side.
Just a reminder, guys, if you have any comments or questions while we're doing this, please feel free to go ahead and add that to the comment section, and we will answer as we see them.
I was thinking about playing some music for this show. I wanted to get some good old Foo Fighters going. Not that kind of music. No. But
Everlong or something.
Yeah, but I was a little worried
tribute.
that what was going to happen is, man, you know how that all works now. You put too much copyrighted music on if you stream it, and the bots will shut you down, and didn't want to lose the stream.
True. That does happen probably more often than it should.
So here we go.
Get
So, I should change my. Are we in focus?
focus.
Focus. Let's go in and focus. All right. So these new guys, these are these ones right here. So we're going to tighten these down, and not super tight. Remember, you're not working on a car here. Remember how tight it was when you took off the other ones. Just go about that tight, maybe a little more snug, but you don't need to.
So
You don't need to tear it into place.
Scotty's asking why we're choosing to put new tuners on. I guess he missed that part.
Scotty.
It was a little bit late to the show.
Late to class.
That's okay, Scotty. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
What you're moving from a traditional the standard tuning pegs
Yeah.
to a locking tuning peg.
Yeah. I made sort of a decision. I didn't realize I was making a decision at the time, but a long time ago, I pretty much made a decision that all my guitars were going to have locking tuners on it. So before we did this, Scott, we talked a little bit about ways to wind your guitar, wind the strings on your guitar to keep them in tune if you don't want to do locking tuners. But ultimately, the best way to keep your guitar in tune is to use locking tuners, among other good practices. But in terms of hardware, that is one of the best ways to do it. And I love this Gibson, but I can't stand how it slips out of tune. I like especially the high E and D. Because you know how I play, Scott. I get on this thing pretty hard, and I want it to stay in tune.
And again, Scott, it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay, Scott. It's okay.
You don't have to
We
be
forgive
sorry.
you.
We forgive you.
Okay. So this is also really awesome, like especially if you do break a string at a show. Like it is so incredibly easy to string up a locking guitar, right? So the way this works, I'll flip this back over so that you can see if you haven't seen one of these before. So we just pulled this string through straight all the way, okay? Actually, I'm just going to show you here because it's easier than flipping it over. And then on the back of a tuning peg looks like so. This is the shaft. This is the part that's inside the guitar. I'm moving my hands and the spoke is going in and out. And then you got the gear, and this is your little. This is just a little knob, lefty loosey, righty tighty, and what it does is it. Let's see with my orientation. Where can you see it? Can you see it? There's a little where you put the string through. There's a little peg. Well, I can't shine light through it, but basically there's a little
See that.
There's a little piston that rides up and down through here that pushes up when you tighten it, and it backs down so you can thread the string through it when you loosen it. So what I'm going to do now is that's nice and tight, or tight-ish, right? And then I just pull this thing, or tighten it, righty-tighty, and then I just start tuning. Oh, I gotta focus again. And then I just start tuning. And I'll kick that up just so it stays out of the way. It's not even wrapped all the way around. That's a lock and tuner. And we're just gonna snip this guy off. And I'm not gonna worry about tuning it up right now. I just wanna put these 3 strings on so that when I do the next 3, I don't lose the bridge, right? It doesn't fall off.
Just to reiterate.
Reiterate. I like it.
The whole purpose of the locking peg is so that you don't have to wind it so many times and get that string under the other strings to lock it into place.
There is no extra string on the guitar whatsoever. It is pinched in place like a vise. Oh, yeah. Always got to remember that you still have to, initially when you install these things, you have to unclamp it, otherwise the string won't go in. Yeah, so there are no wraps on the guitar when you do this. You just pull it straight through, make sure it's sitting, where am I?
Sitting in the right saddle.
Sitting in the right saddle. Get on the back here and tighten it down and start tuning. Crazy quick, especially if you're at a show and you break a string on stage and you want to see if you can better BB King's time.
Man, I've done that so many
on
times.
live show string changes.
You know, I gotta say the string, and I know Bethany's probably gonna give me shit for this. The string I always break.
Oh no,
it's the G string.
It is the G string.
Always the G string.
Always the G string.
But I think that's because right on my saddle, because I use a Gibson Explorer.
You gonna talk about saddles now too?
The same setup here. I think there's a little burr on the saddle.
Yeah, most likely. But we can do a whole show on the G string.
They're very uncomfortable too.
They're uncomfortable, and they're, tonality wise, or like when you're wearing, they're one of the harder strings to keep in tune, only because they don't you don't tune them the same for, well, not necessarily in rock and roll, but if you're playing jazz or something, you don't actually tune the guitar through the same process based on what key the music you're playing in is in, because of all the overtone series and stuff that I'm not smart enough to talk about with a camera in my face.
The shit that we went through 20 years ago in college.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I just totally dated us.
Okay, so that sounds
good.
It's
man.
Oh my god, we're ready to put out an album with this tuning. Okay, so these 3 are on, and so I should say that once I kind of get them in place, I go back through and I tighten them up a bit, and it doesn't look that bad. It looks different than the stock, but it's still a classy look. It works.
A quick question too.
Yeah.
With the spacer on the back, then you don't put the screws in the back?
So I don't put the screws in. No, you don't. The screws are there.
In the spacer.
So what he's asking about is that we have these screws, like these install screws, that you don't. These are so if you do want to drill new holes, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe you're doing this on a fresh build. You've made a neck, or you've bought a blank neck, and you did want to do this without spacers. You could absolutely use these screws to not use the spacers, and just set them the way you would set the other ones.
The originals.
If you're gonna do that, it's really important to make sure you measure twice or measure twice, drill once, right?
It's true.
I was actually a little concerned that I was going to take the wrong strings off. So we'll bring this down and we'll finish the build.
So while we're working on that, how's it going out there? Is this helpful? Is there any other comments, questions, concerns that anybody wants to bring up regarding tuning?
Tell us what you think about using Instagram for this platform, because initially we were talking about doing Facebook, but Facebook's not really what Facebook used to be. But some people don't have Instagram, and some people don't have Facebook, and I don't know what's working. What about, what's that say?
Alternate step down.
I have to expand this.
That's weird.
Scott, that's...
You have to expand it on the left of the window itself. Yeah. Can you? Oh, that's weird.
Alternate tunings, half step down. Oh yeah, no, it doesn't. It won't make a difference. You're good to go. I use alternate tunings all the time. I've never, like that little, that Van Halen key, that thing that goes from like standard down to, do you know
don't they start standard E flat or something?
No,
like
like Van Halen, they've got this, there's like a Floyd Rose, there's like a little gimmicky kind of thing that you can attach to a Floyd Rose, so that if you're you tune it like in standard tuning, and then you pull the thing out and it drops to a D. Gosh, it's like a tuner with a different diameter with a shaft that. Oh man, so many people. That's what she said. That's what she said. That's what she said.
Yeah, I'm surprised Bethany hasn't chimed in.
Oh no, she is. She is.
She's thinking it.
Oh yeah.
I can feel it from upstairs. I can feel it. D tuna. Yes, D tuna, Scotty.
D tuna.
D tuna.
That's the one. Yeah. That obviously works on Floyd's and not on these things, but in terms of like other tunings, man, it's same thing. D tuna. Is that like,
get to the tuna.
Is that like Big Tuna? Any Office fans on here? What's up, Big Tuna?
This a little closer. Just hold on to
Flip it over. Okay, so what songs you guys working on right now? Scott, you've been working on... Did you just get a Van Halen tattoo? Scott Campbell, I feel like you just got a Van Halen tattoo. Did I out you?
Closet. Is anybody really a closet Van Halen fan? I think everybody's... It's out in the open if you are one, right?
It's true.
And we do have a slight delay in case you're wondering if you've typed something we haven't answered yet. Yes, Scotty said he did.
Right on. You put a fretless Rockmore tattoo on the other arm, like if you. No, I'm not. Don't do that.
We don't pay for advertising, do we?
No, we don't. We don't pay for advertising. I want to make sure no one spells it wrong. Fret more, rock less.
More frets.
More frets. More frets. All right. So, on to the B side here.
Scotty actually was working.
Oh, man, I can't read this.
Working on some Stevie Ray.
Yes. Working on Life by the Drop.
By the Drop.
That's the right one to be working on.
Yes.
There we go. Now I'm fixing that problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was gonna say I can't read all of it.
I can't read it. I'm so old.
My contacts are good, man. I swear. Yeah, Life by the Drop. That's actually one that you were working on too.
Yeah, we were gonna play that for like a summer gig in our little neighborhood, and that just didn't happen. But
Nothing
that's
But a Good Time by Poison. CC's solo also.
very good.
There you go.
Very good.
Ain't nothing wrong with having a good time. I think that's what butt rock and hair metal was all about back in the 80s, right? It was just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Having a good time.
So my sister and my mom went. So my parents are driving out from Iowa
Oh, okay.
to come visit, and on the way they stopped in Des Moines. I think he was playing in Des Moines. They saw Elton John like
Oh, really?
like the day after, like a couple days ago. Like I think it was the day. It was his birthday or like the day after.
Yeah, his birthday just happened.
Yeah, and
I think this weekend.
that sounds pretty cool. I would love to see Elton play.
And I went to a rock show in Tacoma on Friday.
Did you go?
Yeah,
cool.
I got my brother to go with
Awesome.
me. I talked him into it, kind of guilted him into it. Sorry.
Take a lot of talking.
No, it didn't really take a lot of talking, but he did have some other plans that had to be canceled for him to make it work. And another friend of ours was up there because he lives in Spanaway, and saw Helms Elite with the Gold Sweats and what was it, Black Galaxy? I think is what they were called, or Black something like that. Know some of the people in Gold Sweats and Helms Ali, and Helms Ali's basically warming up for their Europe tour. So this is one of their warm-up shows at the Plaid Pig, which is pretty cool little.
Right on.
It's kind of like if you're familiar with Olympia, it's like McCoy's meets the Voyeur. So
Really?
but it's just kind of this small-ish black cave-like bar, but it's pretty deep. Good stage. Sound system was okay. It could have been a little bit better. There's sometimes the mics were kind of kicking off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Got a chance to kind of catch up for a moment with some of the folks we haven't seen for a while, like in those bands, and obviously they haven't played for a while. They're starting to kind of get back into the swing of things because of COVID, and it's good to kind of be out there amongst the people again, feeling a little bit of normalcy, if you will. So
Normalcy. I like normalcy.
Gold Sweats was a lot of fun because the guitar player doesn't play a guitar. He actually plays like a mandolin. It's like an electric mandolin or something similar. And there's no bass. The guy's playing a cello.
Cool.
Stand up with an extra long peg. But it's totally stoner metal. Drummers just kicking ass. If you're into weird and cool, stoner metal type of stuff, then I would definitely check out Helms Ali and Gold Sweats for sure.
Did you see that Kylie, my oldest daughter and her mom got tickets to Billie Eilish?
I saw
They
that.
went up there. That's kind of cool.
Good for them.
I guess it's like $400 tickets or something. I think.
Really?
But like people I should have hooked up. So
Wow.
that's cool.
Yeah, I had heard that Billy was playing too, so that's cool that they got tickets kind of a last minute.
When my oldest daughter was first interested in like going to rock shows, her Green Day was playing a show. They were scheduled to play a show on my daughter's birthday in Seattle in the summer of 2020. And we're going to go, and obviously we didn't go. And so, I was like so bummed because I wanted to take her to her first rock concert, and that never happened.
Was that the one that was that wasn't the one with like what are they called? Fall Out Boy and
I don't know.
And all that. Weezer and shit.
I think that might have been it. But yeah, we didn't get to take her to that, but we took her to Candlebox. a while back, and so one of my daughter's first rock concerts was checking out Candlebox.
Nice.
So cool. So that's as quick and easy. We've been streaming here for 53 minutes, and we spent a good deal of that time not doing anything related to changing the strings on this guy or changing the tuners on this. But that's it. It's done.
That was quick. Quick
And
easy. Easy peasy.
you know, again, like Enduring Guitar Works was started as a result. Like, I just wanted to like work on people's guitar. You need tuners put on. You need me to tweak something. Yeah, you can pay me to do it, and I'm happy to. But I also believe that this kind of information should be like widely available. If you're a musician, you're gonna need to work on your guitar at some point. So
It's kind of like if you're a driver, you should know how to change your tire
Yeah.
or change
Yeah.
your oil.
So that is a locking tuner install on a Gibson Les Paul Studio. I guess I could tune it up and play it, but I'll probably do that later. We've been on for an hour, so yeah.
Tell us what you think, guys. Leave us some more comments. We'll post up the video. I'm sure
We'll post
again,
up the
like we
video.
normally
I'll
do.
post up those instructional, those graphics, the string winding graphics too. Because I know not everyone wants to put lock. I mean, I get that. You don't want to put locking tuners on your guitar. There's a ton of good reasons not to. But tuning stability is a thing, and you can play your guitar in tune most of the time. Like if it's not staying in tune, there's definitely a problem that can be fixed. And most of the time that is with winding your strings correctly, or there might be a problem with the bridge, or there might be a problem with the neck, but it's rarely a problem. It's really just something that needs to be tweaked and adjusted, and 9 times out of 10 it's because the strings are just not wrapped correctly. And that's coming from the store too. If you walked into, I have to be careful here, if you walked into a big box shop or ordered something online, there is a good chance that it was just the strings are put on the guitar by a guy with a quick string winder so they could ship it, you know?
Yeah. Scotty says this is very informative and appreciates the
Heck
post.
yeah, man. Cool.
Thank you, Scotty, for joining us and everybody else as well that has.
But, yeah, so, you know, our whole goal here is to give you little insights to the guitarist journey, whether that's talking about your purpose, whether that's talking about playing with a band. Today we're talking about tuning stability and working on your own acts. So hope you're enjoying it. And
Yeah, and don't forget to be a part of the conversation, you know. Leave us messages and feedback, comments during a video. We'll try to respond as quickly as we can, obviously, regardless of if it's during a live stream or not. So give us some more, if there's anything else that you want to see us take, kind of go through or
Yeah.
hear us talk about. There's questions that you have personally, you know, about the music that we've played,
Yeah.
whether together or not. Yeah. So
have a good night, Mike.
have a good night,
to see ya.
Mike.
You should
Thanks
do a
for-
Foo Fighters song, and maybe later when it's all tuned up. That's a good call. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I mean, we've been talking about doing the Mark Lanigan. Maybe
Yeah.
we tie in Taylor Hawkins into that too, and talk, because the whole thought of that particular idea was, one, losing artists far too early, and reasons behind that.
When is granted, social media has algorithms in place, which sort of, you know, affect the way our feeds look. But when is like the last time you saw literally everything stop? Like everything over the course of like 12 minutes, everything was about Taylor.
Oh, dude.
Everything. Like it.
My brother got a
It
text
felt
message
like
from his
when
wife
when it
because
was
we
when
were
it
at
was
the show.
Prince, you know.
Yeah, it was. It was something like that. I mean, which I would never, honestly, wouldn't have expected for Taylor. I would expect that for like Dave,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it was interesting because we were at the show. My brother's wife sent him a text message with a headline.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude. And so I started looking it up, and I looked around the room, and everybody was on their phones looking it up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it spread like wildfire, and it was all over everything quick.
I think like the most resonant like thing I saw. I mean, there's so much moving stuff, and yeah, another show. But I think one of the most moving things that I saw was that Taylor Hawkins is the only drummer that you could sit and watch a show where Dave Grohl is singing and playing guitar and not want Dave Grohl on drums. You know, It was just,
And then see Dave
and
Grohl
then
on
see
drums
Joel,
because
it's
he
like-
would
yeah.
get Taylor.
It's
to come
like
up and sing.
it's like this amazing like they were built for each other.
Yeah, and I mean, I
Yeah.
know Taylor had his demons. He and Dave were basically brothers. They had grown tremendously close over the years. I know it's got to be hitting him
Yeah.
really hard
Yeah.
because this is now the second brother that he's lost
Yeah.
potentially to drugs. We don't know yet. There's nothing out there for sure, but
Yeah.
I've been hearing things here and there, and of course you know that Taylor had his demons and had dealt with drugs at one point in his life as well. So again, that's going to be another topic. We'll talk about that. I don't know, next show or show after, and a couple shows, whatever. We're still working on putting all that together. I think it's really important though to kind of hit on those things.
You got to talk about this stuff. Like, there's a reason creatives are, well, for another show. This is all very, very, very important stuff. Substance use and mental health and music and creativity and songwriting and all that. It's very, very real, and especially in times of loss. And now, you know, we just went through this whole giant period where it feels like everybody lost something. And then to feel loss so quickly, or during that time and after that time, it's just,
Well,
the world is in a weird
lately,
place right now.
I mean, so many have been lost seemingly untimely.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're a sports fan, listen to local sports radio. Losing John Clayton, he was a young guy, relatively young guy, in his mid to late 60s, but still, that's, you know, we're getting closer to that than we were to our college years. If you think about it.
Okay.
Taylor was 50.
Yeah.
Mark Lanigan, 54. Mm-hmm. So, Meatloaf. We lost Meatloaf not too long ago. Yeah, there's.
Well, let's go out on a high note.
It's crazy.
We'll talk about this. Go on a high note.
Tune up your shit.
Tune up your shit.
Put on some new tuners.
Class is in session, right? Yeah. Okay.
Again, let us know if there's anything else you want us to talk about on our shows. We're open and receptive to making this a community effort. Join into the conversation. Leave us some feedback. Leave us some comments during our shows, and we'll try to answer your questions and have that conversation.
Cool. And remember, fret less, rock more.
Thanks.